what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Downtime with Downstar, episode 182. And today we're here with Chris from Kingpin Machine. Chris, what's up, bro?
How's it going, Frank? Thanks for having me on, man.
Of course, man. Thank you for your time. I know you're a busy guy.
Yeah, I mean, when you're one-man business, it's kind of asses and elbows. You're pretty much the machinist, designer, packing, receiving, ordering, what have you. So it's machinist, of course. If it has to be done, I'm pretty much doing it.
I love it, man. Probably from the looks of things, it really doesn't seem like a one-person operation. So that's why I wanted to get you on the podcast to actually dive into it, to talk about the work that goes into these suspension components that you do make. Because, being a one-man show, I know that's definitely a lot of work, for sure.
Well, I appreciate it. You try to put on a good front, and not look like you're one man working out of essentially a residential home. But, that's at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's 2-car garage, full basement. I use a good bit of the basement. Without the basement, I probably wouldn't be able to do it. But, trying to grow and get out into a shop. But I hate paying rent. And so I'm just trying to save up and buy a building. So it's been kind of biding my time and trying to grow the business,
Got you. So if you can, just give us a quick, brief summary of who you are and what you do for people that aren't familiar with the company yet.
Definitely. My name is Chris Brinson. If you've been around a long time in this Honda game, I used to run a site called HondaPro.com. I started HondaPro.com in 1998. It became a real big site, 10 million impressions a month. And from there, went on a Honda Challenge, and really Honda Challenge led to eventually me starting a business called Kingpin Machine. Kingpin Machine, basically what I do is 99% of what I do anyways, is converting, your standard rubber steel bushing to a spherical bearing assembly. And it's got, a lot of huge benefits. I mean, the car, like a road race car, it's going to be more stable under braking, better turn in, alignment settings are more true. It's also applicable to drag racing. I mean, really, CCZ Racing started running my stuff. They're probably the first guys that ran my parts. And so since then, I spread out into the drag racing world. I've got rally race guys. So pretty much, and I'm known for my Honda parts, but I'll make spherical bearing assemblies for pretty much any OEM car. I don't do a lot of fabricated or machined arms from scratch. But I'm pretty much known for converting OEM suspension, arms over to sphericals. So that's kind of most of what I do right there.
Have you thought about making your own arms?
I have. A lot of it is just, there's a saying, and I kind of like it, comparison is the enemy of happiness, right? I mean, I've kind of grown the business small. I didn't have a lot of capital to start. So a lot of what holds me back right now is the fact that I'm on single phase residential power, so I have a Haas CNC lathe in my garage, but it'll run single phase without having to run phase converters, that kind of thing. But I'm just square footage limited. I would love to eventually get out to a shop, buy a CNC mill, a true turning center. For people that don't know, a Haas a tool room lathe, it's a full CNC machine, but you have to load each tool manually. So you have to put tool in and push start. Oh. Whereas a turret, it's got a big turret and it can drill the hole, turn the OD and all that. So it's a tool room lathe is a more simplified machine, but you can hold extremely tight tolerances. I hold plus or minus 2 10,000ths all day. And generally speaking, plus or minus 1 10,000th on the critical ID board of my parts. So, I mean, really, I'm kind of at the point of huge growing pains, I would say. The business is, I'm always having to balance, I guess, prototype work with running production parts. And so I'll do a little prototype work, but then, people are like, man, Chris, you're out of stock on this, this, and this. It's like, all right, so you kind of rush over here and you start running production parts for a while and you try to get those parts off to the welder. And then from there, they go to the plater. And while that's being done, I'm trying to do a little bit of prototype work. So, it's tough. I do kind of chase my tail a good bit.
Yeah.
But I think it's part of the growth process. And, I'm a little bit older guy. I'll be 48 in August. And I'm maybe a little more risk averse than some people are. I really don't want to take a 6-figure loan to make take the business to the next step. It's not to say that I won't do that at some point. Mm-hmm. And I took a big risk, obviously, buying, the lathe to start with. But it's kind of like, you almost have to like, and I'm sure you know this. You almost have to like start your business over and over and over. Like, so you start the business and you bought a CNC lathe, right? And then so that carried you for some period of time, and then I lost my connection with a friend of mine's shop, right? So I didn't have a bead blast cabinet, I didn't have a big air compressor, didn't have a hydraulic press. So it was like, all right. So then I kind of started over again. I had to go and procure all that equipment, and so that, and then I got a lot of cabinetry and things to try to make things work, streamline the process, But now I'm kind of to the third starting point where I've really got to restart again and get out to a true industrial facility with three-phase power. I'd like to get a mill, I'd like to get a true turning center, and I'd like to have at least a part-time guy that takes some of the things like bead blasting. I'm still bead blasting cores myself, which means the customer gets a spectacular product, and anything that's wrong with it, it's my fault, and I like that. But I do need to kind of grow to the point where I can focus on growing the business and doing some of the business side while someone is doing some of the more menial stuff, bead blasting, running simplistic parts, like say bearing spacers. The tolerance on bearing spacers is a little bit bigger, but there's so much of things that I really can't give up control of because I'm such a control freak. I can't imagine me handing off the blueprinting and assembly process, which is that's what makes Kingpin Machine. I'm holding plus or minus a 10,000th, and sometimes less than that on the critical interference fit between the bearing and the bearing sleeve. And what that means, when I send out a set of control arms, you can articulate each bearing, by hand, and they have about the same amount of stiction, so that when you bolt the arms on the car, your spring rate and your wheel rate are closely related. So if you have 600-pound springs, you don't have 1,000-pound wheel rate, due to the extreme amount of stiction that the bearing assembly has. And that's what a lot of stuff you see, either they slip fit, and that's what most everybody does because it's more profitable and more quick. They'll slip fit the bearing, but then the bearing is kind of loose, and you don't have, I don't think, the performance, the longevity, and the safety factor as you do a press fit assembly. But with a press fit assembly, if you get too much press fit, the bearing doesn't want to move in the race. So it's a fine line, and I made the choice early in the business that I wanted to make products that I would bolt on my car and go race on the next day, and I've really let that guide my entire business. I mean, everything that I make, it's not like, oh, this is good enough. It's always good enough that I would bolt it on my own race car and go race on it that weekend.
Yeah. So, how did you even get into making these components, or even knowing that there was a market for this, or even getting into it all?
Yeah, that kind of brings back again, like kind of my background with the whole HondaPlay.com thing. So I had the website, right? Moved out to Arizona in '98. I registered HondaPlay.com, and I started building this online enthusiast community, right? And it had tens of thousands of members, 10 million impressions a month. It became this monstrosity. And all that led to me doing track days, which led to me moving, when I moved back east, led to me doing a track day in my new Integra Type R, had 2001, and a guy named Scott Giles was my instructor. Well, it happened to be that Scott Giles is starting a series called Honda Challenge. And he was like, man, great car, love the car, you need to sell this car, trade it in on a truck, buy a race car, and just go race. Because he says, you're out there, you're basically running your daily driver at 9/10. And it's a matter of time before you ball it up. I mean, he says, I love the way that you're driving, but you need to come out and race with us. Yeah. So I did. A year later, man, I traded that Type R in a 2002 Toyota Tundra and bought an eBay Acura Integra. It was a U.S. Touring Car Championship car from Arizona. Had it shipped over, bought a trailer, bought all his safety equipment, went to the NASA comp school, and started racing, And so through that, I was working in the IT industry at that time. He was a computer guy doing database stuff and all that. And I got caught up after 9/11, got caught up again in 2008. Well, 2008 was terrible. I mean, I couldn't find a job. And in the meantime, I had been taking some night classes in machine tool over at the technical college. And I'm a huge fan of technical school, education anyway. I mean, where can you go that you can start running a CNC lathe, CNC mill, in a few quarters, and be running a manual mill, a manual lathe, maybe the first quarter you're there. It's pretty powerful stuff, So I had been, learning more and more and doing this in my spare time. And I finally said, you know what, it might be time to start thinking about making that jump. And so I started prototyping. Well, what I did is I put a call out on a road race site that I had also started with a friend, Scott Giles, actually. And I said, man, I have this Axis CNC lathe, CNC mill. Do you guys have any ideas for parts? And what came up over and over again was a DC Integra compliance bearing, because there really wasn't anything out, for that particular application. At the time, Progress was the only company I knew of that was making spherical bearings, for the front end of the Integra. And I think towards the end of, at some point PCI came out with a rear trailing arm bearing, and I bought one because I was like, oh, it's cool. It's a cool design. But there really wasn't a compliance bearing like a major commercial product. I think there was a guy named Jimmy out in California that had done like some one-off stuff. And of course, Real Time, I'm sure they ran stuff on their Type Rs. But so I started in, with the prototype process, and I made a decision, I'm just going to use, because even though I had access to a mill, there's a lot of complexity with designing a whole mill, milled housing, and in making a whole assembly. I was like, I'm going to try to see if I can just use the OEM, compliance bushing housing and convert that to a spherical. So long story short, I did that through, I I got laid off late 2008, like when the IT industry was just, it was terrible. There's no jobs to be found. I mean, I had like 1 or 2 telephone interviews over the next, 3-4 months. I was like, man, what am I do now? I was still doing, the night school. So 2009, I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to go, head first into this prototyping. So I prototyped the compliance bearings. Then I started doing the front LCA shock mount, front LCA inner pivot. And by, summer 2009, late 2009, I had a good bit of interest. People were like, were wanting to run that stuff. So I had my friend Jolt, who races SCCA, guy Matt Buchler. Actually, Matt was funny. Matt was on, I've known Matt since 98. He was on this guy called Ed Sawyer's Prelude board, right? And the people from that went on basically to found HondaPro.com. Me and some friends, we did HondaPro.com, and Matt was one of the first guys to run my parts. So here we go back to 1998. I raced Honda Challenge with Matt, and then Matt starts running my prototype parts in 2009, and I finally realized, I was like, man, this thing might have some legs. So 2010, I went ahead and incorporated, and I tried to do what a lot of people do, is I was doing the design work and trying to outsource the machine work. And it was just a debacle. I mean, I had one guy, I was doing rear lower control arm bearing sleeves, and he scrapped all of them.
Yeah.
Ordered 40 parts, and they're all scrapped.
Oh,
Didn't
wow.
measure any of them. I was like, and so luckily I was able to get my money back, so, I mean, it's kind of like how it kind of started organically, I guess,
Yeah.
It was like, I had another local guy I found that was running parts, and he was doing a pretty good job, actually, but it was like fill-in work. So I might order him, he'd be like, all right, and then 2 months later, he might get around to running them.
Got you.
And so I contacted a guy by the name of Charles Blair in Lawrenceville, and I called Charles, and I was trying to get him to run the parts, and he says, tell you what, I really don't want to run them, but if you come up here and work for me part-time, I'll probably let you get some machine time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was really jumping off point. So I went there, worked for Charles, was doing part-time work for him, wasn't making a whole lot of money, but I was doing track day. I was doing like support for different, like, OPM Auto Sport and Cumming. I was doing like going to their events and wrenching on cars and, changing lug nuts or whatever had to be done, and just kind of just getting by, working part-time gigs. And so the main thing with working with Charles is I was able to get that machine time, and it bridged that critical gap between having an idea and figuring out, how am I going to make it work? And how am I going to come up with the capital to buy my own machine? Because I realized, I was like, man, the outsourcing thing just wasn't working for me, And part of the problem is that bearing parts are so picky. It's like bearing work is like tool and die work. I mean, most of the machinists are like, well, it's plus or minus 2000s. Man, if I'm plus or minus 2000s, it's the difference between the bearing rattling inside the race and it not going, at all, if you're trying to press fit it. So, being able to get that hands-on experience and run Charles lathe and figure out like how much work it was to hold the tight tolerances that I wanted to, and sell some parts and kind of get a little money built up. And I still had some money savings and stuff from my IT job. And I finally just realized, kind of, excuse the rude saying, but like my dad used to say, he was a 30-year career Marine, sometimes, son, you got to shit or get off the pot, right?
Yeah.
And so I just sacked up and bought a, 2012 TL2 lathe from Haas, bought all the tooling I need to get started, and I was basically wiped out. I didn't have a whole lot of capital left, and it was sink or swim time. And I just started running parts, and just learned organically how to do a little bit of marketing and a little bit of business and then accounting. I mean, I had never really run a small business, so for me, I was always an employee,
Yeah.
so I had to learn how to kind of get some business savvy, and I just didn't have a whole lot of business savvy to start with, and that's been the big learning curve for me.
Got you. So 2009 is when you get the idea to try to make the spherical bearings for the OEM components, and in 2012 is when you bought your first machine.
That's pretty much it.
Got you.
It was like, I think I started running. It was kind of a mess. Like, it took me a while to get the machine up and running because they delivered a chuck and the chuck wasn't installed right. It was just the kind of stuff that happens, with
Yeah.
new manufacturing, new machines. So I think I ordered the thing in June, and it wasn't until early August that I had it up and running, which was, I'm sitting there. Well, luckily they let me delay payments, and I had, my loan guy help me out. The loan guy's like, don't pay them 1 cent until it's up and running.
Yeah.
So they finally got it all sorted out. And August 2012 is really, when Kingpin Machine started running its own parts, and kind of doing the damn thing.
Got you. Okay, so let's pause on that right now and let's take it back a little bit. So you say the website that you used to run was Honda Pro?
HondaPrelude.com.
HondaPrelude.com. Okay, so
Right.
what was your motivation to start that rather than just being a regular enthusiast? What was your drive to get into like the forum side of things?
So this is like, in a lot of ways, it's almost like, I mean, yeah, it's like you said, it was like the very early days of, I mean, really all there was forums at that time. And so I had just graduated, and I came up, I have a strange background, a strange path to be a machinist, as it
Gotcha.
were. I have an undergrad degree from NC State in journalism, mass communication. Took a year off, not surprisingly, couldn't find a job
Yeah.
that paid a whole lot with a degree. So I'm like, well, now what do I do? Well, the internet was blowing up, and I was excited about the internet, and I thought it was gonna be huge and like a game changer. And I thought from day one, the internet was gonna be huge, right? So I wrote a letter to University of Georgia, and it had a journalism program, and I says, look, the internet is nothing but another medium. It's just like radio and television. It's going to be like the next big thing, and all it's going to do is it's going to use a lot of media professionals. And and it was, hopefully it was, I guess it was eloquent enough and well written, because I got admitted and was able to get a full ride off of the letter that I wrote. And my
Wow.
GRE score. Yeah, it was great, and I was lucky. I mean, I got to play with emerging technologies. I mean, like, I was doing a little ASP scripting and, a little database backend stuff. And I was applying, but we were doing the media side of it, we're applying how is the web going to emerge as a new medium? Because at that time, people were like, oh, this is just a thing for techies. And like this new media, it's actually, we ended up creating kind of like, people at University of Georgia ended up creating like this, new media studies part of journalism, which still exists there. And it was the idea that, it's just another medium, and, media professionals are going to be employed in it. So I end up kind of doing the more technical side, because a lot of, journalism guys just didn't really, gravitate towards computer programming. But I did. I picked it up, pretty quickly. So when I came out of school, I got a job as a web developer, and ended up getting shit canned from that job. They didn't like me, and I didn't like them. So I got shit canned, and, put my resume on, I think it was Monster back then. This is like summer '98, and a company in Arizona starts hitting me up. Hey, why don't you move out here? We'll pay you good money. And I was like, man, it's hot out there. I ain't trying to go out in the desert. So they kept making offers. They're like, 35. I'm like, no. And like 40, no. 45, no. And so they kept going up, and I was like, that'll work. So
Yeah.
I go to Arizona, and and the whole domain name thing was coming. It was big, So I was like, I'll have a Prelude. I have a third gen Honda Prelude. The old 1990 four-wheel steering, terrible motors. I mean, I don't care what you do that car, unless you do forced induction, it's not going to make any power.
Is that the one with the
but it was
flip-up
cool.
headlights and then the
Yep, that's
clamshell
it.
hood?
That's it, man.
Hell yeah.
Yep. Yeah, man. Well, this is the third gen, so it had the hood open normal.
Oh,
And the
got
second
you.
gen had the hood open backwards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the third gen was the one that had the four-wheel steering, to it.
Yeah.
That was pretty, revolutionary, man. That was a cool little car. I mean, it was kind of heavy. It wasn't the best track car, but it's what I had, and like a lot of us guys that came up in the Honda world, especially back then, man, you just kind of run what you brung, you
Yeah.
might have the fastest car, but you just kind of tweaked on it. There wasn't a whole lot of performance stuff, around yet. I mean, you had some, but the market was still growing, But I registered at HondaPro.com, HondaCivic.com, AcuraIntegra.com, and as I was an IT guy, and the stuff I was doing at work was so basic, I was like, man, what if I just find a place to play, find a little web server, and just start doing like honing my skills by writing, a database system. We me and a friend wrote our own forum system. We didn't get some forum software. We wrote forum software, and I made, which was the killer app for HondaPro.com, was something called the setups pages. And being a programmer, I made it so you could upload your own image. They're automatically formatted. It had like a review system so that, we had moderators that could delete images that weren't appropriate or whatever. And we had a time slip section. You had a dyno sheet, but you had a one-to-many relationship. So, I was Chris on the website. I could have this prelude and this prelude and this prelude. So you go to my profile page, and it would show all the links to different preludes. Then you go to the setups page, and it would show all the pictures. Because I was database guys, what they call a one-to-many relationship. So, one owner, multiple cars, one car, multiple image, multiple timesheets. So it was a really complex system, and it allowed me to develop, skills, programming skills that I never would have been able to develop at work. Because at work, I was just like, he's the web developer. You just put him over there, and he just does basic HTML and don't give him anything else.
Yeah.
I was like, man, that's boring.
Yeah.
So I wanted to challenge myself, and I wanted to learn, all right, let's learn database stuff. Let's learn, VB script and Visual Basic and all that. So basically, that's how, that came about. And then it just was successful, which I didn't expect. I
Gotcha.
I thought it'd be like a small thing, and it just became huge. We had, Papadakis came out to this Vegas HondaPlay.com meet. We had, I think it was 2000. We had the HondaPlay.com meet in Vegas. Man, people came over from British Columbia. Papadakis came out.
Wow.
Somebody gave him basically a free hotel room, and it was some guy that's kind of affiliated with HondaPro.com, and he couldn't come last minute.
Yeah.
So he basically says, hey, Papadakis and his girlfriend had free hotel stay, and they came out. I got pictures, on top of one of the casinos of us hanging out, and it was cool. We did a cruise. We had a meet in the June facility, which I forget what part of LA that's in, but I think they're out of business now.
Uh-huh.
But we had a LA prelude meet, and we went to a car show, and had tons of pictures and stuff from that. So it was a really neat time. It became this huge monstrosity by 2001, 2002. We've got 30,000 members, and producing 10 million page impressions. And of course, then my ISP's like, man, you're swamping our server, man. We got to charge you more money. So, try to do the advertising thing and all that. So it was its own thing. I mean, I've never worked so hard in my life for so many hours for something that basically paid me no money.
That's awesome, man. I had no idea. So, were you born in Georgia?
I was.
Okay.
I've never really lived much in Georgia, though, till I was an adult. So my dad was in Vietnam,
Gotcha.
Second tour in Vietnam. And so my mom was staying with her mom, my grandmother, and technically my step-granddad, but he's my papa. He's the only guy I ever knew as a granddad. So they're staying with them over in Duluth, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta. And so I came about, and Dad came home from Vietnam and was like, oh, there's a 6-month-old kid. He didn't see me for until I was older, because that's how it was. But then they picked up and moved to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And I never lived in Georgia again until I was an adult. So, I never really associated with Georgia. I happen to have lived here a lot as an older adult, but I never lived in the state, until I was 18. I lived in Northern Virginia mostly, graduated high school from Woodbridge Senior High.
Yes.
And lived in North Carolina a lot. So basically, I always think I grew up in North Carolina and Northern Virginia.
Got you. Okay. So when did you realize that there was an actual culture to Hondas, and it wasn't just a prelude?
So I started reading, I believe it was Sport Compact Car when I was in high school. I think 1990. I think that's when Sport Compact Car was around.
Mm-hmm.
and I was reading I was big into car audio. So Woodbridge Senior High, I mean, Woodbridge in Lakewood area had a big car culture, and there was like meets it was like a Burger King or something like that. And I would go there, and sometimes me and Dad would go up there, and they had lowrider trucks. Mini trucking was still huge then. Um, so, I mean, but even though I was driving my dad's 72 Monte Carlo for a while, which was actually a pretty cool car.
Hell yeah.
But he sold it, he thought, I don't know what he thought, but he didn't want me to drive that thing. And I ended up with this just shit box, like this 89 Pontiac Le Mans. And it was just, I don't know, that was just terrible. That's the thing that I had. That was why I took to college.
Got you.
But, in a senior in high school, I didn't have a car. And so I would go and look at stuff. And I loved Hondas. I just liked the look of Hondas. The EF Civic, to this day, I'm like, it's a cool car.
Hell yeah.
It really is. The CRXs. But I didn't have Civics, or they were not cheap cars. 1990, 88 CRX was expensive. So I got some pile of crap Pontiac, and that thing was just awful.
Did you have a system in it?
I'm sorry, man.
Did you have a system in it?
Oh yeah, well the Pontiac, I had like this crappy system, but I had a big system in the Prelude.
Okay, what'd you have in it?
I was a JL Audio MB Court PPI guy.
Love
Old school PPI. In fact, I just picked up a PPI, a huge PPI amp that was made in Phoenix, Arizona, off of eBay.
Gotcha.
It was some stimulus money. I got some stimulus money. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna stimulate this guy. This big, huge amp. It's an amp I never could have afforded back then.
What's the RMS on it?
What's that?
What's the RMS on it?
I think the one I just bought is what is that? I think it's a 4-channel. I think it's 4x150 or something like that.
Got you.
Which is a huge. I mean, I forget how many amps it pulls, but it's stupid. You can always tell like how big an amp is. You see how many amps it pulls. Like the Class D amps they have nowadays. Man, people don't understand the old Class B amps. And like the AB amps. It's like it's got a 60 amp fuse. Like it's not joking around. But yeah, I had two MB. I had MB Courts, 6.5, 4s and tweeters. JL Audio, 2 JL Audio 10W6s, and custom fiberglass boxes. I had them built into the rear fender wells.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So it's hard to explain, but I had fiberglass the rear fenders, and so on each side of the rear seat there were speakers hidden behind it. And the whole car was dynamated.
Were those the V1 or V2 Dub 6s?
V1s, yeah.
Got you. Okay.
So it wasn't like the perfect setup because you really want to have 3 of them for a 4-ohm load, but. It was plenty loud. I mean, it run you out of the car,
I love it.
But then I go on to doing track days, which all that stuff was terrible for a track day car, But it was funny. My friend Brady took me out for my first lead follow, and by my second or third event, like it was fun because the instructors were like, "Dude, you're quick." He says, "You need to quit like pestering these guys on the inside." Like we'd be coming around and they'd be all offline, and I'd be like peeking. You weren't allowed to pass without a point by.
Yeah.
But I was sticking there, like I'd get in their mirrors so they could see me, and instructors are just laughing like, dude, you're pretty quick.
Nice.
That was good fun, man. Phoenix, it was Phoenix International Raceway, and then it had Firebird. Firebird was a drag strip, but you had the long straightaway, and it's like a half-ass road course. Man, we had a ball. I went there and ran all the track days I could. With NASA, and it had ASRA.
Yeah.
Organization. So that's really what got me into it. And, I met Brady off of HondaPro.com. So, I mean, like I said, HondaPro.com really was what drove me towards the enthusiast, or like the performance enthusiast side of Hondas. Because prior to that, I'd read Sport Compact Car or whatever, but I was mostly a car audio guy,
Gotcha.
So when I'm in Arizona, I was car audio guy, and Brady and some other guys basically like converted me, and I was bit, man. Once the performance bug, bites you, that's it.
Definitely, man. That's so funny that you say that because car audio plays a huge part of my life as well. I started out at Best Buy in 2005 to 2012 doing installs. And JL Audio, that was my shit, dude. The best system I ever had at one time. It was in my 69 Chevelle. I had 4 12-inch W6 V2s, 2 JL Audio 1001s, 454 to run the 6 speakers inside, and then I had the 6.5. What were they? I think the ZR or XR components in the front, the VR VR 6x9 coax in the back, and then I think they were XR components in the back. So I had 6 speakers inside the Chevelle, fully Dynamat and everything, and an Eclipse 5444 deck with the 5-volt output, dude. Loved it.
I had the Eclipse too. I had the Eclipse TV that came out and flipped up and went back down.
Yeah.
It's cool. It wasn't touchscreen though, because touchscreen technology hadn't come along much then. So it was cool. Everybody like put their fingers on it. I'm like, dude, it's not touchscreen.
Yeah. I had the that Eclipse 5444, and that was when Sony was trying to come out with the was it like memory stick? I think that's what they called it. So right. I guess you could put some music in it, and then you put the chip in. But it was probably like 20 gig or 20 megabytes or something. You probably get like 3 songs on it.
You get like 5 songs, maybe,
Yeah, awesome, man. So back in North Carolina, Virginia. When you get into the Honda community, who were the like the big dogs in the community as a whole that you would hear the names? I know you already spoke of Papadakis, but what are some other names that would come to mind? Okay, everybody, we're going to take a quick break for our sponsors, and we'll be back in 1 minute. Hilto Automotive has been a supporter of Downtime with Downstar for quite some time now, and we know that they're in your corner, that they got your back, whether you're under a car or you just need some help. No matter your race, creed, engine platform preference, that motto stands true. Accord, Civic, S2000, any Honda, any customer, anywhere in the world, with equal respectful treatment for all. We at Downtime with Downstar share these values, and as a special gift to Downtime listeners, they are giving you guys a special deal. Using the Let's Deal function at the top of HeelToAuto.com, you'll find an option to request a special quote. Submit a special quote using the key phrase, "I'm down with Downstar." Once again, the key phrase is, "I'm down with Downstar," for a special deal on whatever you're shopping for. And of course, if you need any help, Marcus from Hilto is available by call, text, email to help out. Hilto wishes you guys a happy, healthy, and safe 2020. So I know a lot of you guys are questioning, what is this whole cult thing that's going on? Well, we at Downstar are starting our own cult. What is it? Are you going to have to drink punch? Are we going to sleep with your wives? No, none of that yet. But what it is a direct number to us, meaning me, Frank Downstar. I'm the one that's answering the text. So please, right now, text us, 818-403-3473. You're just going to have to follow a couple simple steps, get added to your contacts, and text us. Let us know what you're thinking of the episode so far. If you guys have any questions, anything like that, anything, even want to talk about life, man, just shoot us a text. We're here to help you guys out, and we're here to have some fun, man. And that's what the cult's about. So come join the cult. 818-403-3473. No charges. We're not going to be selling your info. No bullshit like that, guys. Just straight up fun. So make sure you guys shoot us a text right now. 818-403-3473. And enjoy the rest of the episode. Have a good day.
Gosh, it's been so long. Who was... Man, I'm not going to remember this right now. So there was a car, when I was in Arizona still, there was a guy did a lot of car shows. I'm not going to be able to come up with his name. And it's crazy because I posted a sticker from those old days on my Instagram account. And it was like they had these events. We're talking like 99, 2000. It was combined events where it was a car show, drag race or whatever. And there was a guy who was like crucial to that early days. And I'm not going to be able to come up with his name right now, unfortunately.
Was that Battle of the Imports?
Yeah, I think that was like one of the events they had. It had at Firebird International. They had a few events, and I think that might have been one of them. But man, I
it's possibly either Frank Choi from Battle of the Imports or Ken Miyoshi from oh my God, it slips my mind.
Yeah, there's another guy that was real big back in 2000, 2001. I think he's still around. RJ DeVera.
Yeah, RJ.
That's it. RJ DeVera, and he set us up. It's me and my friend Brady again, and he set us up, and I think we got tasked to do a little like car show judging, which, man, I felt so uncomfortable doing that, But he just needed volunteers, and it was Brady's idea. Brady's like, man, we should go up there and volunteer or whatever. And I'm thinking like, oh, they won't need us. No, they needed us, So
oh, really?
Cool. We were sat in the booth all day and told people where to go and gave out information, and I still have like some stickers. Like like, old June sticker and stuff like that, from that 99 2000 event. So
Import show off.
import show off. That's it.
Import show off. That was the one from Kemiyoshi. But it was probably one of the two events of those.
Yeah.
But
but that was still early, It wasn't until, it's crazy, man. I mean, I never was a big car show guy. I basically went straight from car audio, and mostly just like hooning around, like just annoying people with car audio. Although I was definitely an SQ guy. I mean, I wanted stuff to sound like real. I'm a perfectionist. I want stuff to sound right, But I kind of went straight from that to the track day stuff. And was it? We went to some races at Phoenix International, and like I remember, like King Motorsports came down, running a car, and it wasn't a big event. It wasn't like real time racing big. Of course, we would watch. I mean, I watched real time racing religiously back then. I mean, those guys with the Integra Type R's. I mean, it was so cool because they had combined events where they had GT cars, touring cars, and man, you'd have like a slower Mustang and one of the front running, real time cars tangling it up into corners because that's how fast they were. And those cars were just blazing fast, and they were pretty simple too. I mean, they weren't even that modified, but just everything you could do to that car, within the rules, they had it done for sure. Real times to this day, they're just fast, and those guys know their stuff. So I was more like, looked up to the higher level of racing, and I just didn't. I can't remember too many names as far as like the track day guys.
Got you. Okay. No worries. So let's get into your journalist major. That's very interesting to me, man. What made you want to be a journalist?
Well, failure basically. I started out like electrical engineering technology, and man, I couldn't get past Calculus 2. Yeah. I don't know what it was about Calculus 2. Like I dropped it with like a 30, and dropped it again with like a 40 or something. And so I made a huge mistake of going to a little school called Georgia Southern in South Georgia. I grew up, pretty open-minded kid. I was a skater kid. I mean, skateboarding and being a son of a Marine are the two things that probably like shaped me the most in my life. I mean, to this day, I'm 48. I'll be 48 in August. I wake up in the morning. I'm either like having dreams about skateboarding. I mean, I'm better than I should be, or I'm like really terrible. And I wake up and I'm just frustrated. Like, damn it, I suck.
Yeah.
But I went to Georgia Southern for 2 years. Hated it. And the way that the way that you can pay in-state and out-of-state tuition as Marine dependent, and it's a lot of rules governing it. So basically, I was stuck there for a couple of years, transferred out, went to NC State, and was so much happier there. I just fit in better, and in Raleigh. Raleigh's a little more open-minded, than South Georgia, and I just, I didn't understand racism. I really was a sheltered kid, Marine base. You have mixed race, marriages. It's no big deal. Everyone just lives among each other. It's just, so that was the first time I really saw like really blatant racism. And I was like, okay, I don't fit in here. So transferred to NC State, and man, I just got cold feet. I had failed Calculus 2. I kind of had a clean slate, and I was like, do I really want to try electrical engineering here, and still struggle with Calculus 2 and then have like another, 30 or 40 or 50 or whatever grade on my record and still not be able to pass it. So I was kind of like major surfing, so I forgot that I had some intermediary major, and I tried it, and it was just wasn't for me. And I finally just had a catalog, like, what am I going to do? I got to get some degree. And so I just kind of picked communications. So gotcha. There really wasn't a strong, reason behind it. Maybe I probably had the mindset is I was doing college radio shows. And that was the one cool thing about Georgia Southern. So my second year at Georgia Southern, I did college radio show on WVGS Statesboro, all punk rock, all skate rock, all the skate videos back then had like, Bad Religion, Operation Ivy. I mean, whatever. I mean, just, Dinosaur Jr., just whatever. And so I had a, basically, it was a punk rock show, but it was like skate punk rock.
Hell yeah.
It was more than that, so as opposed to say like, I didn't play a whole lot of like Sex Pistols or whatever, like the old school stuff, So I really liked that. Transferred to NC State, and then it happened to be I went to the radio station to see if, if they might have a slot for me.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, a guy I went to high school with was doing a show, and he was like, Chris, and I'm like, holy crap, and so he was like, dude, I'll set you up. So they put me in a slot. Well, I had to do like some daytime shows, which they had like their formats were stripped. So during the daytime they had like rock,
Yeah.
but at night they had what they call Nightwave, and it's WKNC Raleigh, and their Nightwave show was like alternative punk rock stuff. So I played again same type stuff, but by then I had learned like about No Effects and Pennywise, so I was expanding out. It's crazy enough. I mean, Face to Face would have been around back then, but I've been listening to No Effects on Pandora the last, I don't know, 5, 6 years. Been kind of getting back into my punk rock roots, and I didn't hear about Face to Face back then for some reason. But all that kind of genre, and I think probably I thought, well, if I do communications, it might lend me towards getting a DJ job or something like that. But the problem is that I don't like popular music a whole lot, and there's not a lot of punk rock on the radio. So I mean, I really just didn't have much of a plan, to tell you the truth, Frank. And I felt like I was 3 years in, I had to get a degree, and I feel like some degree, is better than nothing. I mean, a degree shows you have the ability to stick to something, and that might suck, and see the end.
Yeah.
And so for better or for worse, like I said, I'm probably more of an advocate of technical education now that I am, a 4-year degree. But at the time, it still means something. I mean, I'm proud of the fact that I stuck it through and did it, even though, I've only used it a little bit in my life,
Yeah, you're touching on so much rad stuff right now, dude. The radio station, that sounds awesome, bro. Do you remember your intro when you would get on the mic?
I don't, man, and I don't know if I was that. I think so. I think they take away some of the creativity because they make you do certain things, So I think you got in the air, you immediately had to do call sign, and you immediately had to like read certain PSAs and all that. So, I don't think I probably was like the least creative DJ, ever.
Yeah.
And I was like a late bloomer, I mean, when I started NC State, I was 20. I probably had the maturity level of an 18-year-old, to be honest. In many ways, I looked at it as like I'm starting over. Georgia Southern was Georgia Southern. I wasn't a big fan of that area, but the cool thing is that I got to do the punk rock show, and so I kind of like looked at NC State as like a fresh start. But I was never a super confident, dude. I basically was just a kind of nerdy, skinny skater kid that liked punk rock and rap. I mean, my favorite group in high school was Public Enemy. To this day, I still love Public Enemy.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. It's so crazy how there's so many similar stories just around our culture. Where skateboarding or certain music, it all mixes in. It blew my mind, dude. Yesterday, I saw Fort Piston. They posted a care package from Baker, and I'm just like, wait. How does this even connect? Because Baker's my favorite skateboard brand ever since I was a kid. Like I have a Baker.
Andrew Reynolds is just absolutely.
He's a monster, dude. I have a Baker banner in the shop right here. And before we started, I was just watching Baker 2G, and the intro of Baker 2G is actually the intro to the podcast. So when you play the podcast, that's where I got the sound sample from. So I'm just like, how are these guys? How are they even into Baker or what? So I guess the guy who one of the owners of Baker is an old Honda head. So that's how they got connected. I'm like, man, this is so crazy, dude. It's just like, it really, it does, man. If it feels like a lot of these hobbies that we were into are sort of like outcast hobbies that brought us all together.
Yep.
So do you feel like you were an outcast, and do you feel like you really didn't have many people to relate to you as you were growing up?
Absolutely. And in fact, I'll tell you the truth, like between me and you, it made my hair stand on my arm when you said that, because you absolutely nailed it. I mean, and my dad taught, he would make me feel better because he'd be like, son, don't ever confuse acquaintances with your real friends. Don't ever do that. Don't make that mistake. He says, you can go through life, and he says, if you have 20 acquaintances at one time, that's awesome. That's good for you. But don't ever think that when chips are down and things are really, the wheels are falling off of your life, don't ever think that those 20 people are going to rally to your support, because it'll just crush you. They won't be there. So he really made me focus on, look, family is what you can depend on. And maybe you have one or two, if you're very lucky, close friends in your life. But, and I really was a kid. I mean, everywhere I go, I had like one close buddy. I had, I think like 5th, 6th, and 7th grade, I had this guy TJ, and we were close. And I started I had like a little banana board, you know, and I was like tooling around this banana board. And then 8th grade, I went to Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and man, I didn't fit in there. I had no friends, you know, I had acquaintances, but I had no friends, badly bullied, terrible time in my life. But the cool thing is my parents they didn't have a lot of taste, or they didn't really understand like buying the nicest of something, right? So they bought me this Veriflex skateboard, and the thing always turned right. It doesn't matter what you did, it just turned right, you know? But the crazy thing is, and I think it pissed off the kids that I was like hanging out with, is I would do stuff on it that they couldn't do on their, you know, whatever, Jeff Grosso or whatever they had. And it was just another reason to bully me, you know? And like, I remember one time the kid's like, you know, I got this new skateboard or whatever, and he was like, try it out. So I tried it out, and I think like I scratched the graphics on the bottom on a curve. He's like, oh, you scratched my skateboard. Then that was another reason for those kids to bully me for another week.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what a bunch of posers, like trying to protect the graphics, man. You gotta wax it. I mean, so I was glad to be out of Carlisle, Pennsylvania is a pretty place, cool car culture, but you know that middle school era is just a disaster. When you're a Marine kid, like a little gypsy moving around, like here a year, 2 years, man, you move to a place for 1 year, and we didn't live on base, we lived off base. It was a disaster. So I moved out of there, went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, Fayetteville, my birthday was August 2nd, and I told my dad, I said, I want a real skateboard. And if you're not going to buy me a real skateboard and let me pick all the components, then I don't want anything at all for my birthday. So, I mean, I hate to be bratty, but I wanted a real skateboard. So we went, and I got independent trucks. And I got a Neil Blender board. I still remember that, but I still have that Neil Blender board. It was a Neil Blender coffee break, and had Neil Blender, like, you know, chilling with his cup of coffee, you know. Yeah. And I don't remember the wheels, but, you know, it was a real board. My dad complained about the price, and I was like, you know, hey, it is what it is. Man, and I laid waste to kids in the neighborhood as far as like my talent level. I was just so much better than them, you know. And then I started skating down, you know, off base, and met kids that were way better than me, and it was so cool, you know, that pushing each other and getting better. And then I felt like I belonged, and that was like that skateboarding probably, you know, I've heard a lot of people say skateboarding saved their life. Man, it's really not it's not an overstatement. It's not hyperbole. I mean, I was so isolated and so alone, and I was such a maverick, but not a maverick in like a cool way. Like, you know, I went stand up to my mom, so she'd make me wear these Coca-Cola shirts, and my jeans fit too tight. And I was just such a dork, you know. But I just wasn't like, I just didn't have that backbone at that age to really stand up for myself. My dad's a 30-year career Marine, you know, and he was strict in his own way, or absent, you know.
Yeah.
So it was a weird time for me. But that 9th and 11th grade year, I got so better at so much better at skateboarding, learning kickflips, and, you know, I mean, just rail slides and disasters and all this stuff. And then, you know, I progressed, made fast friends, you know, and more like people I was close with. It wasn't just like some acquaintance, you know. I had a couple of guys. I had this guy, Curtis, that was a year below me in high school. This guy, Derek, who was a year older. We skated. We're like, you know, it was just cool. Like, Derek's a black dude, I was a white dude. Curtis is Asian dude. And, you know, like, people just thought it was kind of funny seeing the three of us together, you know. But man, we were fast friends and skated, had a good time. And then when I could learn how to drive, I had my dad's 72 Monte Carlo, and we could finally skate like the better spots. Yeah. And man, it's so exciting when you get a car as a skater.
Yeah.
People would tell me, like, they're like, dude, when you get a car, you won't skate anymore. It's just bullshit. I would be skating even more because I'd be able to go to the cool spots. Yeah. And we would go all over Fayetteville, dude. We found spots. We had spots for like when it rained. We had spots when it was too hot. We had spots when it was cold. You know, you had all your little spots in your back pocket. And man, that, you know, growing from that, you know, I moved to Woodbridge, Virginia after that, and I had a close, you know, I'll say close friend, but he was a guy that I hung out with exclusively. It was just me and Keith hung out, and we skated Washington, D.C. We skated Freedom Plaza, you know, all these, you know, well-known spots. I had like this, you know, wasn't that great, but this shop called Sidewalk Surf Shop, you know, and so me and Keith got like this kind of like sponsorship, which didn't mean a whole lot. You got like a discount or something, you know, but we skated Manassas, and, you know, it was just a cool period. But like you said, I mean, I kind of went off the rails there, but throughout my life, at most, I had like that one close guy, you know? Yeah. And when I was out in Arizona, it was Brady. You know, me and Brady were fast friends. And so, you know, I think a lot of people that are kind of like drawn to like skateboarding and punk rock and seem like even the Honda culture, there are guys like me, and maybe I don't know if you were the same way, but I just didn't fit in, bro.
Yeah, definitely did not, man. I always talk about this. I remember in junior high and in high school that I would do my homework at lunch because I didn't have any friends to hang out with.
Right,
Even like my skateboard was like my first best friend. As
right,
crazy as that sounds, that it was always there for me, and we always just had like the greatest experiences. And then even when I would skate with people who were into skating, like they wouldn't treat me right as well, and it just made
right,
me feel like more of an outcast. And then
right,
even now listening to music where they're singing about the same issues that I'm going through, such as like punk rock, and then that mixed with skateboarding as well, it made me feel like I had so much power just being by myself. So at a very young age, I learned that I was the only one that was in charge of my own happiness, which
right.
at that time was a very, very rough thing to go through. But the lessons that I learned to this day are invaluable. I know that without anything or anybody, I can still survive. And, not that I want it to get to that point, but it's very comforting knowing that as low as you can get on the totem pole, you still have that feeling inside of you of confidence that you'll still be okay. Because when the most vital times in your life, when you needed people, you really didn't have anybody, and I never
Right.
felt really comfortable with putting that burden on my parents or anything like that, because for one, I felt like it was embarrassing, me not having
Right.
any friends, nobody that I assumed didn't like me or that I could share experiences with. And plus, they were busy figuring out their own thing, they're trying to figure out life, so I didn't want to put more on their table. So it was one thing that I really just dealt with myself. And one thing that you did say that I believe a lot was a quote that you said from your father, which was that don't mistake acquaintances for friends. And I keep learning that lesson over and over. And it's one of those things that you have to understand that not everybody's gonna have the same heart as you do, but
Right.
just realize that if you want to be that person for somebody else, you can do that. So that's why I like talking about these personal, uncomfortable things that most people really don't talk about. Everybody wants to highlight like the great things that are going on in their lives, but I like to
Right.
highlight the struggles that I went through, because it's the same similar struggles that you've been through, and we were raised on different parts of the country, and it's just that there's those things in life that just that are those comfort creatures that that other people experience with friendships or sleepovers or things like
Right.
that. I remember just a kid having a birthday party, and of course I wasn't invited, but like everybody else was. So that makes
Right.
me think to this day, like I never want to make anybody feel like that. So
Right.
I'm always over sympathetic to people's feelings, how they feel. We just had people over for the 4th of July, and my whole thing is I want to make sure everybody else has a great time before I focus on, am I having a great time? Because at the end of the day, if everybody's having a great time, that's my pleasure.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, like we touched on a minute ago. I mean, if you write the story of someone's life, I mean, most of the time, much of the story has to do with overcoming adversity, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll never forget my senior prom. I skateboarded by myself in a parking lot at Lake Ridge, somewhere in Lake Ridge, when I lived in Woodbridge, and that's pretty sad. But I was like, man, I felt more me, and I was more comfortable with myself there than I ever would have been wearing some stupid get up
Yeah.
around girls that wouldn't give me a time of day anyway. I mean, I would have felt like such a tool in the corner, just like sitting there.
Yeah.
I was much happier skateboarding. And so, yeah, I mean, I was a kid that played with a lot of Legos, and like I was a creative type kid, I mean, that kind of isolation, it changes you. And, I mean, not always for the good, but I think it does, build character. And at the end of the day, when your story is written, people are going to spend more time talking about, you're overcoming adversity than like, Bob was like the coolest guy in his soccer team, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't even care, bro. It's just
I
it's
feel
just
you,
not.
man.
You know?
That's It's crazy, dude, that there's a lot of similarities like that. Not just with you, but just with a lot of people that I've podcasted with.
Right.
And it really does. It tells you, you go through the adversity, and either you're gonna go down a bad path where you just woe is me, or you change that into something that you end up being your own business owner, and now you're living the life that you want to live.
Right. And I think I think my dad kind of touched on this one time, but he was talking about, like making it in the Marine Corps, like say like boot camp or something like that, right? And he says, everybody like quits them on themselves, but the key is like don't quit on your friends and don't stay quit. So I mean, a million times I have so many things like zinc platers. I mean, I'm sure you have problems with metal finishing will drive anyone to absolute craziness, right? I've had parts where I had parts that had to ship out, and the zinc plater overplated them, so everything's plated too thick. And
Yeah.
I'm sitting there having to sand the board. I mean, and like for hours and hours and hours. I mean, you end up throwing stuff. I mean, this is before I really worked with my plater, and I was like, you can't plate stuff longer than the timer is. You can't sit there because then you ruin all my tolerances. And I've had like so many things like that happen, and I'm like, I'm just done. I'm just gonna do something else for work. I mean, I don't care. And so you go, you walk away for a while, but then the next day you're like, and it's like, don't stay quit.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of quits in their mind, temporarily, but it's the people that pick themselves up, dust themselves up. I mean, I had stuff happen. There was a company, ESM Race, that's gone out of business now, but they were inspired to do spherical bearings off of my stuff. And man, you could see like as soon as they incorporated, like my sales went like, psh, I was like, crap. And I hadn't really found my niche yet. I
Yeah.
mean, I was still searching, like, do I want to run lots of products, massive quantities of products, and then like have resellers that resell it? Or am I going to be like customer direct or some amalgam of both? And I hadn't figured out a lot of the business side. I mean, not that I have it figured out now, but man, it was a tough time. And they hurt my sales real bad. And I had customers that, that went and tried their stuff. But luckily, most of the customers came back and went like, "Oh my God, Chris, it's so bad," So they came back on my stuff, and
Yeah.
eventually those guys went out of business. And what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It might be cheesy, but it's true, man. And I came through it and came to the other end, and it also made me to focus on diversifying. I
Yeah.
can't be just a Honda drag race guy. And
Yeah.
I had gotten to where 90% of my sales were Honda drag race guys, and so now I touched on earlier with you. I've been doing parts for Brian Hurta Autosport,
Hmm.
Touring Car America series,
That's
and
the Veloster.
yeah, Hyundai Veloster. And so that's been a really cool experience. And that was the kind of stuff that I think I got too locked into just doing Honda stuff. And I was like, dude, I make spherical bearing assemblies. I mean, I make spherical bearing assemblies for full drive trucks. I can do them for anything. So I think I just, for a while there, I let, our own brain can be our own worst enemy. And I
Yeah.
allowed, like, oh, ESM's taking this money out of my pocket. Well, only if you let them. I mean, because there's money to be made. There's money just everywhere, right? So if if you get up off and quit feeling sorry for yourself and diversify and prototype different products, and so that was a learning lesson for me. And that it was really like one tough year that I kind of just got down on myself, and I rebounded from it. And I think I'm better off for it happening. I learned something. I don't think anyone's going to drive me out of business now. I think the only thing that drives me out of business now is like just get tired of it,
Yeah.
repetitive stress injuries or whatever. But I mean, I pretty much feel like I can do this as long as I want, and that's a powerful feeling. I think I had, prior to the ESM thing, I had this feeling like maybe I didn't belong, and maybe
Yeah.
someone's going to come along and drive me out of business. And I don't feel that way anymore. I have an easy confidence about what I do, and and the fact that now I've got pro teams come and want me to prototype stuff, and I mean, I have so much prototype work to do, I'm
Yeah.
only one person, so it's cool when you have having too much work always beats the alternative, does it not?
Yeah, definitely, man. So let's get into the struggles of business a little bit. I remember following you. I don't remember how I actually found out about the brand, but it was pretty early on. Looking at the notes now, it's probably around 2012-ish, 2013 that I was aware of the brand. And
Okay.
then I want to talk about one subject that I did, or one situation that I did see happen. It was where you had said something, and that had that had pissed off Dave at Skunk 2, and then he wanted to come back and come out with their own spherical bearing products. Tell me about that situation a little bit, and what you actually learned from it all in hindsight.
Well, I've always been a competitive guy, and I don't have a lot of respect for, I mean, a lot of the stuff that's made in the U.S. It's not really made in the USA, right? So you have companies, and Apple's a perfect example. I have an iPhone. I'm not better than anybody else. Apple designs a nice part, and they have it made in China. And, it is what it is. I mean, I can't change that. There's nothing I'm going to say that's going to convince people that that's not right.
Yeah.
But everyone has their own ethos, and they have their own code of conduct. And to me, if I design parts and have them made in China, I don't feel good about myself. That's not really what I'm about, right? So sometimes, you get a little competitive, and maybe you get a few drinks in you, and you feel back talk, So I think I found a Skunk 2 box, because I was converting Skunk 2 upper control arms to sphericals. So I find a Skunk 2 box and decided it'd be a great idea to go collect up some dog poop out of the yard, and I posted up a picture that said "reduce, reuse, and recycle" with the Skunk 2 box. In hindsight, I might not have done that, had I not have about 12 beers in me, but it happened. Pissed Dave off. I'd be pissed if I was Dave too. So he was gonna run me out of business. He's like one of like 4 different people that told me they're gonna run me out of business, and I was like, oh well, good luck. And I'll say, that was my fault. They made the spherical bearing stuff now. It's Skunk 2 quality. That's all I'll say. It's what it is. But they didn't run me out of business. I don't think they hurt my sales at all. But I probably could have handled that a lot better. And I think I had a big chip on my shoulder. I still have a big chip on my shoulder. But I think part of we talked on, being uncool and being kind of on the fringes of society or whatever and not fitting in, man, I was just I wasn't always happy about it. I might paint a good story about I overcame. Man, fuck, I was pissed.
Yeah.
I was pissed. I was a lonely kid,
Yeah.
So I sometimes let that chip on my shoulder come out. It's a character flaw of mine. So I'll admit, that I probably could have handled that a lot better. But live and learn. And but like I said, I'll make Miata parts. I'll make Ferrari parts. I had a set of Ferrari arms I was going to do for a guy a while back. But he ended up changing his mind. So I really don't feel like anyone's going to likely run me out of business,
Yeah. And the reason I bring up that subject is because I've gone through similar things like that, and probably for the same reasons. If you've grown up like we have, you do have that chip on your shoulder, and then when things start going right, when you start gaining that sort of popularity, then you wow, this is something new, So then you use that for the wrong. And I've had the same situation happen, and then that ended up turning into a competitor. And in hindsight, if I look back, if I just held my tongue, maybe they wouldn't have even been a competitor,
Right.
So
I agree. But I mean, at some point, I kind of feel like they probably would have done it anyways. I mean, K-Tune makes sphericals now, and I mean, nothing wrong with it. But Sean from K-Tune called me, some years ago and wanted me. I think he basically wanted me to give him a set. I offered him a big discount, but I don't have the ability to just give people stuff.
Yeah.
So they end up doing sphericals for the DC, and I don't know if it was connected to me or not, but I think at the end of the day, K-Tune and Skunk 2 and Blocks and all that, they're just looking for products to make, and they make them as cheaply as possible, and it's their business practice. I mean, it's not what I don't need to make everything either, right? So. I resell a little motion control suspension. They're a Georgia company. Mm-hmm. I have tons of respect for a company like that, JRZ. They just do dampers. They don't do everything, right? I tend to have more respect for companies like that pick something and they want to be the best at that industry.
Gotcha.
And that's kind of I feel like I'm the best spherical bearing manufacturer, or working every single day to become the best spherical manufacturer there is. I don't need to make water, pump plates I just don't need to do all that. And so I think a lot of these companies, the reason why they're quite, and look, I understand that Skunk 2 makes some quite, I think some of their headers are quite good. I mean, I've heard some good things about the cams and stuff. So it isn't like everything they have is bad. But I had skunk tube upper control arms on my Hunt Challenge car, and man, you had to just modify them so much. Scuff all the paint off, put lock washers, change the bolt style, because you go around corners on R6 Hoosiers, man, they are not going to hold. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
driving the car, there's no way they hold out of the box. So I wanted to make a product that fit and functioned like a proper race car part from the get-go without any kind of modifications. And that's really what has driven Kingpin Machine, is why can't companies make true racing products that are competition level that last? I mean, I have this guy Spencer Anderson up in Northeast Hunt Challenge, has 9 years on the original bearings on his spherical rear load control arms. He's got 6 or 7 plus years on the fronts, and if you do things the right way, I think you can produce a part that performs well, is safe, and has longevity. But I think most of these companies, they want to use $4 Chinese bearings to improve their bottom line. And they do have challenges, like they have resellers, and the resellers have to make money, right? And because I am mostly customer direct, I could basically put all that money into bearings
Yeah,
and
definitely.
labor.
And with a lot of
Different field.
these other brands too, they have a lot of parts. They're always R&D in a lot of different parts, so that extra income goes to different places. I understand how you're looking at it completely, and I understand how they're looking at it completely. And both of those companies, Skunk 2 and K-Tune, they both do great things for the community, because you have to look at a community as a whole. You have to look at it from the 15-year-old kid who's barely getting his first car to the older enthusiast who's been around since the 90s and wants to have the best of the best. So to be able to take care of everything, you kind of got to focus your attention on everybody, rather than if you want to be just the premier guy, your piece of the pie is going to be a lot smaller.
Right. Absolutely.
And then if you want to be part of, I just want to be the eBay company, yeah, you're going to be able to sell a lot of parts, but your parts are going to be cheap. They're going to break a lot. You're going to have a bad recognition, and your brand isn't really going to last that long, because people know your parts as entry-level parts. So that's how I look at it, man. When I see a competitor company come up now, I don't get mad at it. I think, okay, cool. Another company that can introduce people into what we do. So now when that product goes bad, when they don't like it anymore, when they realize what that company represents, then they're going to come over here to the premium. So that makes my job a little easier. But yeah, there's nobody that's going to be able to end your brand but you. And that's the same way that I look at it. The only way that Downstar is ever going to end is if I decide to, or if I do something that causes it to end. But I don't think there's anybody that can just come out, even any of these big companies. I both of them, I'm acquaintances with both the owners, and we have that mutual respect with each other. But even if they wanted to, or another company wanted to just come out with a hardware line, yeah, that would be a hit in the beginning, probably, because it's like the new girl at school. But after a while, people know we've been doing this for 10 plus years. This is what we specialize in. This is what I do. It's not just an addition into my product line, and which I know that they understand that as well. So it's just, it's business, and then it's about relationships too, and if I was in the position that Dave was in at that time, I would have probably done the same thing, because I've done things like that as well. Yeah. And I look back at it now like, man, that was kind of a grimy move. But then I'm like, hey, business is business, so it's a hard one, man. Those acquaintances aren't friends.
No, I mean, and it's like the K-Tune thing. They probably have no idea. I've never said anything to Sean or anybody. And they can make whatever they want to. I can't tell anybody what to make.
Yeah.
And you can't patent a spherical bearing. At the most, you can do a design patent, but all you have to do is change the design 10%. So. I didn't handle the Skunk 2 thing very well at all. Hindsight's 2020. But the K-Tune, I was just like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
They can make what they want. And so I have, hopefully I'm learning and maturing over time. Like I said, I'm a late bloomer, man. It took me a while to learn some lessons, and sometimes somebody taking some money out of your pocket, that lesson might actually stick a little bit better,
Yeah, definitely, man. I've learned a lot of the same lessons, and dude, the grass is definitely, it gets greener for sure, man. So you just got to keep on keeping on, and do what you're doing the best. Like the products that you use are on some of the fastest cars out. I just seen yesterday that Sonic with the all-wheel drive car, he just posted up your products.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, Sonic's been a great promoter of mine. And I'll tell you, like this, I would mentioned him already. It's really humbling, and it really, I'm so appreciative about this. Guys like Sonic that are out there promoting me. I've given him a little discount here or there, but man, I'm telling you, he's gotten no free product from me. He just really tells the truth. Like he likes my product, he likes what I'm about, he supports me and promotes me, and man, I appreciate that. And people always asking for sponsorships. I'm like, dude, I don't have the ability to give you free stuff. I just don't do it all. But that kind of guy, when he needs something, boom, it's done. Like if he bends the lower control arm, it's just going to arrive in the mail. Yeah, that's the thing with Spencer Anderson, the Honda Challenge guy. The entire Northeast Honda Challenge region knows about Kingpin Machine, and a good bit of them are running my stuff because he's like an evangelist, for Kingpin Machine. So, man, I really appreciate and am humbled by guys like that help you out. And I don't know if I would have made it in this business if it wasn't for the guys like Sonic and Spencer that just they basically use their publicity to further you and your business, and that's huge.
Yeah.
I mean,
hell yeah, just making those relationships.
Oh, exactly. I mean, Speed Factory, pretty much all their cars run my stuff, and we did a little discount, for them. But man, they've told me things that that you couldn't pay for. Like, I hope they wouldn't mind, but they says, look, Chris, we have the ability to get free product, spherical bearing product from anyone, in the business. But instead we chose to buy yours. And, when someone tells you something like that, there's no price to be put on that. And that means a lot to me. So I get a lot of guys that I think that are really loyal about my product. Ramey's supported me, Praying Racing, JJ Auto Works down in Florida. I mean, you hate to name people because there's so many guys and you don't want to leave anybody else. But I mean, there's guys from Integra Type R Expo and Grid Life, and there's just guys that basically have evangelized Kingpin Machine and said, hey, this is one guy doing things the right way, and I had one guy give me a compliment that meant the world to me. He says, as good as Kingpin Machine's stuff is, the customer service blows the stuff out of the water. And I had an incident happen, Praying to had I think the parachute lifted the car up and it collided with another car, and they're trying to turn the car around pretty quickly. They weren't able to get the chassis completely straight. And so I worked with Norris, and I made offset spacers to move one of the control arms, forward and to get the chassis back out. And I think they still raced that car. And, I turned it around in really short order. And that's what I try. I mean, my mindset, I say this all the time, I always prioritize current customers over new customers. Mm-hmm. And I hope that new customers don't take that the wrong way. I want your business. I absolutely, people sometimes get frustrated, like, well, I can't get this part like right now. I'm like, no, I'll have it for you in a few weeks, but it's not ready right now. But what's cool is once you're in the fold, like once you're inside the family, so to speak, if you're stuck with a bad suspension arm and you're trying to make a race, and you need to overnight it and done, I'll move heaven and earth to make that happen. And I think it's really important to prioritize your current customers, or else you find you don't have any,
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of companies, they're always like new business. I want to get new business. I want new business too, but I want to make sure that my current customers are happy. And any customer that ever tells me like, Chris, man, I got this problem. I need this bearing spacer. I need it sent out like right now. Man, I make it happen. There's no excuses. I just make it happen.
I love it, man. So, can you give us a quick breakdown of what the benefit of a spherical bearing would provide for drag racing?
So drag racing, you want to prevent wheel hop. That's probably the biggest problem with drag racing is wheel hop. So if you take like a DC, front lower control arm, it's rear triangulated, right? So you have this is the straight part of the arm, mm-hmm. and then the rear of the chassis this way. And so the arm is rear triangulated, and when the car launches, it's kind of like stretching this way. Well, people were trying to use these traction bars and have it triangulated towards the front, and you're basically purposely binding the suspension because when this is trying to move forward, this is keeping it from moving forward. So you're inducing bind to try to prevent wheel hop. And the reason why people were doing that is the rubber bushing, by nature is going to deform. And like a compliance bushing, it's so thick, it massively deforms. So as you kind of get this undulating effect where you're getting dynamic caster and toe change. And that's what's creating the wheel hop issue. And as you get on the track, every time you shift, the car's making so much power and has so much traction that the car wants to kind of undulate left and right down the track, right? And all that has to do with the rubber in the OEM bushings. When you replace that with spherical bearing and replace it the right way, meaning like you don't have undue stiction. So the spherical bearing ball is still easy to rotate. You take out the slop. So you eliminate dynamic caster and toe change, which means that when a car launches, it takes a set and goes. Now you still have like chassis flex. You have the actual, the lower control arms themselves will actually bend, from the extreme force they see on launch. But you're eliminating all the dynamic toe and caster change issues that really create the problems. And it's the same for drag racing or any kind of motorsports. When you go into a braking zone, say 140 miles an hour in DC Integra, right? When you really get on the brakes, that soft compliance bushing is squishing and the control arms are flexing like that, right? Mm-hmm. And when that happens, the car wants to steer. It's like passively steering because you're basically getting a toe change. And if the steering wheel is not dead straight, then the car wants to steer, and you get this tail wag effect. Once you put a spherical bearing in those inner pivot locations, that can't happen. The suspension arm can only move up and down. It can't move fore and aft. So that's really, it isn't rocket science, but that's where most of your benefits come. Now, having low stiction, allowing suspension to compress without requiring as much breakaway torque, because the rubber steel, think about it, you got a rubber bushing in there, you can't even move the arm, right? Even if the damper is disconnected and springs out, the arm doesn't want to move or only moves a small bit. With spherical bearings, you drop the arm and the arm just hits the ground, So there's advantages to be had by having that low stiction, but the vast majority of the advantages is the elimination of dynamic toe and caster change.
Got you, man. Dude, that's so much knowledge for I didn't even think about any of that stuff. About that having to do with like the with the load and the toe and all that, and then the wheel hop. What about like maintenance on the bearings?
So I use Teflon line bearings are also called maintenance-free bearings. I only use Minibia aerospace bearings in my front load control arms. In fact, each one of my bearings, the retail price on an NMB ABWT10, which is the ones I use in the front LCAs for DC Integra, the retail price is $40 each.
Okay.
My competitors use $3 to $4 bearings each. So each one of my bearings costs me more than all four of their bearings multiplied times two. It's so, they're a maintenance-free bearing. The Teflon liner is a really high grade. They're the same bearings that are used in jet fighters. They're used for critical components of jet fighters. So they last and last. They're a maintenance-free bearing. There's really nothing in the world you have to do for them. You install if it makes you feel better, you can spray a little Teflon spray in a rag, and wipe the margins of the bearing off. But basically, most of the rotation, it's rotational movement. It doesn't move that far. You don't have a lot of degree of movement, and it's a press fit between the Teflon liner and the ball. So because of that, you're not dragging trash into the bearing. People have this mistaken idea that a bunch of trash is getting in between the bearing ball and Teflon liner. I've had worn slap out bearings, not too many. I've been sold $100,000 worth of bearings, my cost, and I've only replaced a couple $100 worth of bearings. That's how well stuff lasts. But when you get a bearing that's worn slap out and you kind of swivel it sideways, there's no trash or debris between the ball and the liner. What happens is the liner eventually cuts grooves into the bearing ball because the bearing ball is spinning like that over time. It eventually cuts grooves into it, and that's what causes the wear. And so it'll eventually wear out. But the cheap bearings, because they're machined so poorly and the Teflon liner is so inexpensive, in very short period of time, the bearing ball is moving fore and aft in the race, and it creates this popping noise. People think that there's this misnomer that, spherical bearings are inherently noisy. It's not true. Cheap spherical bearings are inherently noisy, and the noise is because it's caused by the play of the bearing moving forward and aft in the race. But when you use aerospace, Minibia stuff like I do, you don't have that. So I do use, less expensive commercial bearings in lower load applications like the upper control arm. I use the Aurora commercial series there. But I always have the option to run aerospace stuff everywhere. If you have the budget, I recommend it. I mean, I would say the average lifespan of my stuff is 6 years, 15 to 20,000 race miles. And we're talking like, our compound Hoosier race miles. The drag race guys obviously don't see as much mileage because the cars,
Yeah.
they launch so amazingly hard.
Yeah.
But I had one of North Printer's guys sent me some arms for rebuild, and I think they got 6 years out of them, and they still like the bearings weren't bad. They have a little play in them, but he just did it for peace of mind.
Got you.
What's cool about that is I disassemble all the parts, bead blast them, send them to be plated, take them back, reassemble blueprint everything. They're new. They're new parts. They look exactly like they're brand new, and they're half the price as new because the bearings are quite expensive, and I have some labor time. But instead of being like $445 for a set of DC front LCAs, you're talking like $220. Mm-hmm. So you're getting 6 years more, 7 years more passes for half the price. And so I always say that Kingpin Machine produces a product that has a great value, but it's not a low price.
Gotcha.
So people have to understand, I think the U.S. is a price-driven economy, for better or for worse. I think for worse. But again, that's my ethos. That's, I'm not a fan of the kind of like, I don't go to Walmart. I haven't been to Walmart in 15 years probably. I save up for nice things. I buy nice things. I don't buy a lot of them, but I just like, if I'm going to buy a couch, I want to buy the couch that I'm going to have for the next 10 years. I don't buy some crap for a year. So it's just a mindset. And so that ethos goes through my life and through my business. And I want everything to be, as long lasting as possible, done the right way, but it can't be cheap, but value is more important to me than overall price.
Now, would you recommend your products to, just like a street car?
Generally, no. I kind of try to dissuade people from that. Everybody, that's the kind of dirty secret in the aftermarket industry. Everybody's like says not for road race, not for road use. I mean, and I resell some PCI, so nothing against Brian. I like Brian, like what he does. But that the vast majority of PCI parts are going on street cars. So let's be honest. But it says not for road use. It's the dirty little secret. Everyone's like wink, wink. Not road use. I really do honestly try to tell people, like, here's why you shouldn't run in the road. It's nice to have some compliance in the suspension. It's expensive, But if someone really wants to run it, my parts for a street car, I have no problem selling them. My street car has fresh OEM bushings and the low control arms, and it has compliance bearings on it, and that's it. No spherical bearings anywhere else. But I think it tightens the suspension up. It breaks more true. Alignment stays more true. And it's a little more fun. But I don't want to run full sphericals because it just kind of, it's a little more harsh ride, more noisy.
Got you. So if somebody wants to, like, say, get some front LCAs from you, do they have to actually mail in a core, or how would that work?
No, I keep cores on hand. I try to all my products that I have. I try to keep cores. I have BB6 Prelude cores, EF Civic. I'm actually out of DA Integra front LCAs right now, but I've actually got a full set of DA Integra rear LCAs ready on the shelf, ready to assemble. Always keep DC stuff in stock. So yeah, the way I usually work is I charge the cores charge up front, so I don't have to chase people around to get cores back. But most everybody goes ahead and pays that core charge up front, and then if they want to send arms back later for a full refund, that's great. And if they just want to keep them as spares, that's great too. So it seems to work best for everybody. I had a guy in Southern California that was my junkyard, salvage yard guy, and he got the cleanest cores because the carbon, the emissions laws are so strict out there. A lot of those cars are coming off the street, and getting scrapped. Yeah. So he got me the cleanest arms, like almost rust free, like just beautiful stuff. Unfortunately, he moved to Oklahoma. So I've been having a hard time. So I'm going to have to kind of see if I can find another California guy to find me some arms because they're just so much cleaner. The desert is just nicer parts. And the worst arms I get, of course, are the Northeast and North Midwest. I mean, it's just stuff is a disaster,
Have you ever talked to Steve from HMO?
I haven't, man. They do a lot of like control arms and stuff too.
You never heard of HMO? H Motors?
Oh, I've heard of them. I just thought they did mostly motors. I didn't know they do as much.
They pretty much do everything. They bring the cars in and strip them all the way down. I can just recall right now there's probably a 20 by 20 pile of LCAs and suspension at their shop. So he might be a good one to get in contact with if that's what you're looking for sure.
Yeah, man, it's all about networking, man. I'm all I may not pay what, yeah, obviously I don't pay it. Like, so like my core charge for the LCA is like, say, $70,
Yeah.
but I always pay $70 because I get so many bent arms. It can be so subtle. Like, it'll be bent like 100,000. Man, you can't tell until I have a granite surface plate. So you put on the granite surface plate and you line them up, and it becomes pretty apparent. But until you press the bushings out and really get them, on a completely dead flat surface, you really can't tell by eyeballing them.
Got you.
But yeah, man, I mean, I'm all about networking. I'll give them a shout and see what they're looking for, because I buy quantity.
Yeah.
I'd be good with buying 20 sets of arms, whatever.
Yeah, definitely hit him up, man. Just shoot him a message on Instagram. Steve's an awesome guy.
Will do, bro.
Chris, I love everything about the brand, dude. I wish you the best. And if there's ever anything I could do for you, help you out, please just let me know, man.
Well, Frank, I'll tell you, you've already helped me out. I really appreciate it. I mean, I appreciate the fact that you would give a little guy like me a shot. And it's been cool. Like, I do some Instagram live videos. It's usually like really late at night.
Yeah.
I've usually had a few drinks on the weekend.
Yeah.
It's cool. And I'm a little more out there on those. And, I probably do run my mouth too much, but I hope people know it's in good fun, man. I really don't harm. I promise you that I have no ill feelings towards, anyone in the industry. I mean, one of the cool things about my life is I really don't hate anyone. I mean, I just I found my niche. I'm happy doing what I do. And the fact that guys like you are willing to reach down and give a guy like me a hand up, a pull up, man, it's much appreciated, bro.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude. I've been there so many, I've been going through this for the last 10 years. So I understand all the steps of everything, man. And the thing that I've come to realize is that your reputation and networking is one of the biggest things, so you have to make those relationships with people, and sometimes they'll go good, sometimes they'll go bad, but as long as you have genuine intentions, I don't see anywhere but going up.
Right. Appreciate it, bro. Definitely.
So before we get out of here, dude, I have one question. I was looking at where your shop was located, and you were very close to Lake Lanier.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about Lake Lanier, because I hear it's haunted.
Is it haunted?
You've never heard that?
All the people that drown there?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it's like a lot of these lakes. It was man-made. It was made by damming a river.
Yeah.
And they didn't clean any junk out. There's a racetrack in the bottom, like a circle track, the old dirt track, in the bottom of it. There's old construction equipment. There's stuff everywhere. And I don't know why. I think there's a lot of people that goes. It drops off really quick, because it was just made out of a huge valley that's filled with water. So you can very quickly, end up over your head. And it just seems like you get a lot of people that go there that don't have a lot of swimming acumen and get themselves in trouble. But there is like fishing line and stuff under there. And you have divers every now and then that go down without a knife and get themselves caught up in fishing line. So, yeah, I don't know why. It does seem like a lot of people drown there, though. So I hadn't heard that it was like necessarily haunted, but it's sketchy. I used to I had two little wiener dogs. Unfortunately, it's been a bad year overall. I lost one of them. Other one's senile. But, he's the one that passed away is 15, and the other one will be 16 in mid-August. But, man, I'd enjoy taking them to the lake, and watching them swim. There's something about a wiener dog. I was like, how the hell do they swim so well?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't spend a lot of time on Lanier other than just like the shallow portion, just letting them. I used to let them swim around and stuff, but yeah, it does seem like there's an extraordinary amount of death on that lake for sure.
Yeah, don't swim in there anymore. When I went there last summer, I went to Atlanta for Grid Life. Okay. And then my cousin, he's not into cars, but he's into fishing. So we went out to a Bass Pro Shop, probably really close to you. And then, yeah, so we went to Bass Pro Shop, and then he's looking on his phone because he wanted to go fish. He's like, oh, dude, there's a huge lake. So we went back to my buddy's house, and we're telling him, oh, we want to check out this lake. And when we said Lake Lanier, everybody's eyes went up. They were like, nah, don't go there. And then telling me about the stories. And then I had one of my buddies from Atlanta on the podcast probably like 2 weeks ago, and he talked about it as well. And then there's the rapper Waka Flocka. He's from Atlanta, and he just did a podcast and on Mike Tyson's podcast, Hotbox, and the commercial that they used was him talking about Lake Lanier, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? So then I check you, and then I look in the maps, and it's like, no way, dude.
I didn't know it was all that bad, but yeah, I mean, I know it's too close to the city too. You get like knuckleheads drinking in boating, and it's just
Yeah.
there's a lot of shady stuff that happens there. So yeah, the nice thing is I don't have the money to have some boat to be pimping around. So I
Stay
just stay in it.
close.
I stay in my lane, bro.
There you go. Chris, I love it, man. Dude, like I said, anything you ever need, let me know. Rooting for you, bro. I like what you do, and I like the attention that you're putting into it. And I like the late night lives that you do. If you wouldn't have done any of those late nights, I probably wouldn't have asked you to be on the show because I'd never seen anybody represent the company. So,
Right.
when you show your personality, and I'm like, oh, this dude seems like a cool guy, and there's a lot of companies that I would like to have on, but they just don't have the personality.
Right.
And maybe back in the day that wasn't as important, but I feel like that's extremely important now because with so many options out, people want to actually know where their money's going to, what's the knowledge behind Kingpin Machining. Why should I trust Kingpin versus a competitor brand that's a lot cheaper, so it's a lot easier to get into this information, an hour and a half conversation rather than you trying to explain something within a post. So I hope people understand the value that Kingpin brings.
Well, I appreciate it again, Frank, man. Like I said, I mean, I encourage anybody who wants to stop by, check out my Instagram and check out my Instagram lives. I could be a bit of a character at times, I guess, but I mean well, and hopefully people understand that I really honestly care about the product and I want them to win. It isn't about just making a bunch of money, man. I really want people to enjoy the product, and I call them legacy products. I want after I'm gone, I want people to be like, man, Kingpin Machine, Chris Brinson made good stuff, and that's kind of like where I want to be.
Good, man. Well, you're on the way there. So if people want to find out about Kingpin, where can they go check you out?
I think to get the best idea, I'd encourage people to check me out on Instagram /Kingpin Machine. That's going to give you the best idea as far as the quality based on the pictures. I have video showing articulating the bearings, and I really explain a lot of the detail, the attention to detail, and what goes in the parts. If you're not on Instagram, you're welcome to check me out on Facebook, kingpinmachine.com. But I encourage you, even if you just go, if you don't use the Instagram app, just check out in a web browser. Just check out Instagram /Kingpin Machine, and I think that you'll get an idea of where I'm coming from. It's probably the best place, the best single resource to show you what I'm about.
Definitely. Awesome, Chris. Thank you so much, man. Make sure you guys check out Kingpin Machine. We'll leave their Instagram below. And a huge shout out to our sponsor, Heel Toe Automotive. Been around since 2002, supplying you guys with all the Honda parts that you need. Make sure you guys check them out, heeltoeauto.com, or on Instagram at Heel Toe Automotive. And Chris, you're the man, bro. Thank you, brother.
Right.
Guys,
Appreciate it.
thank you for listening. This is Downtime with Downstar, episode 182, and we're out. Peace.